So I've done this intro a few times, and it gets weird every time I try doing something silly. So, welcome back to Green Chat. We're going to take a closer look at an upcoming MMO, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. My name is Cleeze, and let's get started. Hello everybody, hope you had a great weekend and a great April Fool's. Hopefully I don't fool you. I am casting this on April Fool's Day, so boom. But anyway, hope you all had a good weekend. Let's see. This week we have some questions from you guys. And there was one little quick tidbit I wanted to cover. Somebody brought up a great example, at least on the previous things that I've covered. And that would be it. It's going to be a little bit shorter than normal because it's kind of a family weekend for me, so we're trying to turn and burn, you know what I mean? Trying to light those rockets, burn that fuel. So without further ado, let's jump into what it is to be in Green Chat. I hope I mentioned this is a place where you guys can ask me questions, and I give you my opinion to formulate your own on Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. A place where you can really come and experience a slight dabble of immersion into what the universe of Pantheon is without actually getting into Pantheon because it's not out yet. It's in pre-alpha. Who thought? So, let's begin. So I've always wanted to try this, at least give you guys a little bro fist and see if it works. So, bro fist complete. Now we're small. Boop. All right. Man, I'm a goofy little silly goose today. I guess I've had a lot of Easter candy. I normally don't eat candy at all because it's bad for you. So let's begin. Let's start this off. So today we have some questions from a nice guy named Fragile and Crimson. Crimson was on last time, so let's start with Crimson. So starting with Crimson's comment, he's asking, what's your thoughts on some race starting zones being harder at the start, need to group or duo by level 3, versus others being able to solo until level 7? So in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, I would definitely expect this. My thoughts on this is I think it's really cool. Personally, I like the diversity. I like how there's more challenging races than others because it completely makes sense. If you were born, Shrek the Ogre in a swamp and, what is his name? Farquaad? The king guy in the human city, whatever, it doesn't matter. But basically, if you're like a human that's born in a human city, you're going to be surrounded by people that are like peons, like tendering the land, what do you call it? Beating the land with some tools to soften the soil to plant your crop and then get stuff like that. But if you're in a swamp and you got to eat like bugs, I mean, eating bugs are great. I think like 80% of the world eats bugs. It doesn't really matter. But you're going to be really resource starved. You're going to be restricted on a lot of different aspects of life that a human would otherwise not be restricted on. So heck yeah, it should be more difficult for the other guy to level up, to learn things, to be more whatever. Granted, he'll probably make much better companions and friendships, built through trials and tribulation versus the human, which was, much more of a backstabber because his life was so easy. But I really like, and I would expect that in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, certain cities to be much more forgiving than others in their starting zones, much more the environment itself being more chill and relaxed versus, it's lighter often potentially, and then some zones being very dark and dismal and difficult to deal with and dangerous to traverse to different areas. Maybe not as many people there because it's a less liked race, even though I think when the game comes out, there's going to be people everywhere on every race. But I would expect to, recap that guy. I would expect different starting zones to be of different varying levels of difficulty, and no matter what class you're playing, and the need to group up maybe early or later, depending on the area you begin in. So I think that in itself is something to look forward in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, because a lot of games they create different skins for their zones. Like different starting areas are skinned differently, but relative to the difficulty of it is kind of exactly the same. You're like a starting area, you branch out to this level 5 area, and then it's like a level 8-ish area, then to 10, and then cities start merging around that point to areas, and it just kind of really gets homogenized, like all the same and kind of boring. Maybe not for some, but I find it boring. So cool thing to think about. Thanks, Crimson. That's something to look forward to in Pantheon. There's a little diversity in your race. Well, there's obviously diversity in the race, but diversity in where you start. What kind of difficulties and challenges you're going to be having to conquer and hurdle like a track star. So moving on to, we're going to do another question from Crimson and then jump over to good old Fragile. So Crimson's asking, there is huge, he's not really asking, he's commenting. He's trying to drive me into a corner with these amazing good points. Next, Crimson's commenting, there is huge ocean gap between continents, at least on the map. He didn't put that part in there, but it looks like it on the map anyway. Figured I'd put that contextual information in there. How do you see players getting to another continent? So I see players getting to another continent with a boat. They're going to take a boat, and there'll be stuff in between it. I think they're going to go a lot with the EQ move. So in EQ, there was boats. You'd have to wait forever. I mean, legit. I took a boat the other day in P99, and I think it took me 20 plus minutes just sitting there waiting for the boat. The boat got there. I must have just got there when the boat left or something, but that stunk. But I would expect boats in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen between continents, and you'll probably have some port stops in between on the way, or they'll maybe have more direct boats and less direct boats, or we'll see how they work it out. But I think they'll move pretty quick, you know. When they set sail, they'll probably be turning and burning, and they'll probably have more than one boat. I know in older games there was only like one boat, and you're like, what the heck? So they'll probably have multiple boats on the same trading lanes, or you know, I'm just calling them trading lanes because it's cool. But yeah, expect ocean travel to be driven by boats, and then to have a lot of weird, unique things out in the ocean. Weird islands, lost people on these islands, weird sea creatures coming up, and usually very treacherous out there. And then if you die out there, that's even more treacherous because you're in the middle of these islands, and who knows, you know, it's like serious business. And remember, you got to run back to your body and loot it, so it's not like you're going to have your gear on you when you die. Potentially. They're going to explore that in beta and alpha, how penalized the death will be. But I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure if they're going to have corpse run. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see. But in any case, it'll be very dangerous. If you die in general, you'll definitely lose experience, and that'll stink. But it'd be a great opportunity for them to place some things out there, like really cool crafting stuff, or NPCs for spells, and stuff like that. So, and I know Brad really likes this traditional type travel system, and I don't think they're going to, like in games right now where you jump on the boat and then you go to a loading screen and little dots go across the map and then boom, you're at the next location. I think they're actually going to use the terrain, the ocean, as an area in the game that you can explore and enjoy. Or die in, you know, whatever. It might stink. And if you fall off the boat and you're drowned in, your stamina runs out, oh, it's terrible. But I would expect that in Pantheon. Okay, so next we have, I'm going to address really quick 2 comments from Crimson because you're going to be super fast. So one is, what kind of things would you like to see in a cash shop if one is, or if there is one? Next is, how would you feel about there being a game token to get and use that grants subscription time? If there was one, how should you get it from an NPC or cash shop? Should this be tradable? Why or why not? So first, let's go over the cash shop. I really hope they don't sell anything in a cash shop because there won't be one. Also, they said they really don't want a cash shop a few times now, and they're like, drop it, we're not doing a cash shop. And they cashed out on that one. Took that to the bank and made a deposit. That didn't even make sense. But yeah, there's no cash shop in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Game over, no cash shop. And they said they won't have a cash shop, and if they go back to having a cash shop, I think that'd be a very bold move on their part, because they've actually given items out to people and then had to take them back as pre-order, you know, little doohickeys. They gave doohickeys to people. I think one's like boots or something, is the one I know, and they intended to have those in a shop, because this is like really early in development. They had these concepts out there, and then somebody was like, hey, isn't that kind of pay to win? And they're like, oh my gosh, totally, and whoop, and they yanked the shop right away, and they said, nope, we're not having a shop. All quite, you know, and then they refunded people. It was a big shadackle. So I would not expect a shop. I would not like to see a shop, and I know a lot of people would not like to see a shop. Moving on. So that bounces off your next question. Granted, you can have tokens that aren't, you know, sellable in the game, like whatever. But how would I feel about tokens to purchase subscription time? And if there was one, could it be an in-game item, like kind of like you're saying, like an in-game token? And it should just be tradable. Why or why not? I don't like tokens because, again, you're going to create a kind of pay-to-win situation with those, same like we're just saying with Cash Shop, and it kind of gives you this sense of alt currency. Like, if a game started with a token, you might already start losing the value of the currency in the game before it even comes into value. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll trade you 3 tokens for that cloak, bro. Or you can start selling items for tokens rather soon. I mean, that'd be fine if it was part of the game and was really worked into it. But because they're not having a shop, I don't think there's a place for tokens or for subscription time. Now, there could be a way to, like, buy a currency in their website. I've seen some games do this. I'm not sure why they do that. I think it's for lateral across to different types of things in their store. For some reason, I really don't know why they have this, but they have it in certain games where you can earn these things that are like tokens, or pay for these things like tokens, and I guess to give it to somebody else would be a great reason for it. So if, like, you wanted to pay for somebody's subscription without actually giving them your credit card information, you could buy these magical little gems and then trade them these gems from accounts through the website, not in the game. Again, these currencies don't exist in the game, so that might be a cool thing, a nice feature to have on their website, but not in the game. Keep everything out of the game and have it go to the website if they want to do something like that, just to make that stuff nice. Now, again, with that, you could have kind of like a really easy way for gold sellers. You know, you could trade them tokens, and in the game, the only transaction they'll see is somebody giving you gold. And however they do that, they could translate that even into an item in the game. So maybe not a great idea. But then again, or when you try to stop somebody from doing something negative, you're more or less going to be impacting people doing the right thing moreover than people doing the wrong thing, which is majority of people do the right thing. And punish one guy, affect hundreds of billions because so many people play Pantheon. Nah, but affect a lot of people, you know? So anyways, I'll stop talking about tokens in shops and stuff. I wouldn't expect them in Pantheon. I just straight up wouldn't. Wouldn't like to see it. Don't expect to see it. So expect not to see it. So Crimson's probably going to kill me, but no, Crimson won't kill me. I don't know, I'm going crazy. But I'm going to jump into Fragile's questions a little bit. And he still has some more Crimson that I'm going to keep chewing through. I haven't forgotten about you, bro. No way. So just want to kind of mix it up. I find that I kind of just rapid fire through these, which takes no effort on my part to split them up. Why am I even going on about this? So anyways, Fragile's asking, after viewing both streams, this is the most recent streams done by CohhCarnage and Jim Lee. I should really look this up. Oh my gosh. And indeed, it's Jim Lee. So after viewing both streams, what did you think of the progress they've made with combat? Question mark. So interestingly enough, when you watch the combat in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, not much. It's the translation of what's actually happening is kind of hard to grasp in most senses, because you can only see the perspective from one class, and this person picking it up just started playing at that stream. So it's not like you're kind of catching. Obviously they have abilities down at the bottom. You can see that a lot of classes are doing different things and stuff like that. I'm not sure if that's what you're going for with me, at least asking me this question. But what I did notice is this. I could say, when you say combat, I'm not sure if you're talking about the actual technicality of combat. Like, is it interesting that when an enchanter does damage, that boosts the mana of the group, or that when a healer is constantly getting pounded on, does it get interrupted? You know, that's, you know, does a tank lose aggro, or, you know, have snap threat, stuff like that? Is that what's interesting, or the way it looks, like the way spells have improved, the way movement is improved, the way mechanics have improved, stuff like that? So I'll just go over what I think, and we'll check it that way. So I think it's really neat, personally, that let's go over the coolest thing I think was, and that is the spell casting of the bad guys, dude. Like, and the environmental sounds are wicked. Like, they'll be like, I can't even really mimic it, but they sound crazy when they're casting spells. So what that means to me is when you're going to be in combat, your combat cues, that allows them, I guess they have mentioned this, is they're going to try to make combat much less scripted and less gimmicky. But at the same time, it's going to be slightly, you know, on a script, but there's going to be a lot more variables to play at with their new AI, with the AI of the NPCs. And when a bad guy is casting, it's like, holy cow, that's freaking awesome, man. Like, it's making these crazy, like, the room like goes like boom, and it's like heavy bass. I don't know, it sounded crazy to me. It happened a lot in Jeremy Lee's stream, when they were going at it, and it was like, I'm like, dude, that's sick. It just makes you cool, like you want to be in the room, and it's like scary almost. It's like you're actually intimidated by the way these things sound. And then also, one thing I would mention that was pretty cool was the spellcasters and stuff like that on the friendly side, the players, the way spells were looking and the way, you know, the impact, like it felt like, I don't know, it felt like a classic, you know, dungeon crawler, not dungeon crawler, like a classic, like Dungeons and Dragons feel. It wasn't too overgone, but it was kind of cool, like what you would actually think a fire spell might look like, kind of looked like. Granted, it's super downplayed right now, and they need to do more work on it, of course, but I thought that was really neat on the combat side. And on the melee side, again, I didn't really, I mean, you got to kind of see what they were doing, but the one thing I did notice is that the encounters seem to be more tuned out, which I thought was pretty cool. So like they'd be going in there and they would try different strategies to deal with different encounters or different boss type mobs or named mobs, and you know, barely win or change their tactics up and then win, or at least come up with a plan ahead of time, and then while they're sitting there coming up with a plan, things spawned on them. I don't know, I thought it was really neat. And as far as combat goes, I think that's what's really important for Pantheon, and I think they're making great strides in that direction as far as that goes. Next up, we have another comment from Fragile. We've seen a few classes on these streams, but never a hybrid. Where are you, Paladin? Do you think that they're in the same spot as Warrior or Rogue when it comes to class development, ? So what I think you would expect to see from these guys is, what would make sense to me, I'm not sure how they're going to go about it. I've never developed any type of class balancing and stuff like that. I mean, it's easy when you're in the far end of it and there's all the classes already made. But as far as developing, what would make sense to me, what I would almost expect to see is them to make the base classes. So Warrior, Rogue, Monk, Druid, Cleric, Wizard, Mage. Make all the other classes first, the pure classes, and then when you step into the arena of a hybrid, the one thing that's difficult about a hybrid is you don't want them to be too overpowered, you don't want them to be too underpowered, and because they're a hybrid, they're mixing two of the other classes together, like a meleeing Druid kind of is what the classic Ranger has been, or meleeing Cleric has been what a Paladin's been for the most part. And I don't think they want to go with the same kind of move that they went with in EQ in past games, where they get a couple of special spells for themselves, and then they pretty much get these same class spells as the other characters, at least some of them, like 20 levels behind, like crazy style, like this, like a Cleric gets a spell at level 10 and a Paladin gets it at like level 30, like crazy business like that. I think that kind of undermines the whole point of a hybrid, because at least in a mechanical sense, or in the sense of way it would work, maybe not so much in a lore sense, where you kind of run into issues. If you try to make it lore match or make sense with lore, you're gonna have a problem with being underpowered or overpowered, because you're trying to take a Cleric and throw some melee on him. But if you want to make it make sense, like in a mechanical sense, or like, and pretty much, you'd probably give him his own line of spells, or as much as you could, and then give him, maybe sure, toss some Cleric spells at him. But that's what I would expect, is to see them last, or I would personally develop them last to save myself time, because it would be very difficult, because you wouldn't want it to overlap with the Cleric in any way. So you can build the Cleric out in what makes sense and what makes sense in lore, and then jump over to the Paladin and then get creative, and then burn your creative engines after you know what's on the table. You know what you have to work with, you know what you need to do. So, and you're not kind of guessing at question marks and, oh, we'll address that later, oh, we'll address that later, won't really be coming up. So, because you're addressing the entire thing later. Duh, bro. Gosh, I just say the most obvious stuff sometimes. Why do I even? So anyway, that's what I think about that. So I wouldn't expect to see them anywhere near anytime soon. Now I know they're working on the Ranger, I would expect, but I mean, expect to see them, because they're going to be moving into what? They got to be moving in alpha sometime soon. Not soon, but like, I mean, soon for them would be 9 months from now, would be soon for a development team. So they probably have at least a mock-up of what they're looking for. But I wouldn't expect to see it in any development streams anytime soon. All right, guys. So I think this is gonna be my last question. I'm trying to make this a little bit shorter, and kind of on a time crunch. Not so much. I could be spending all night doing this, but then, you know, I gotta wake up in the morning and I have to like actually exist and stuff like that. And that's just. But the one thing that's good about being you is you don't have to see this face every day. You know what I'm saying? Just once a week. It sucks. So I'm gonna start with the last question here. It doesn't really suck that bad. It's not bad. It's not bad. So if you were world first, Crimson's asking me, popping back over to Crimson. If you were world first in killing, beating, achieving, or obtaining something in Pantheon, what would it be and why? To answer this question, how long should this single one thing take to do? So, to be fair to this question, I decided to quickly ask myself it and then not think of whatever I wanted it to be until I asked it right there. And for some reason, I mean, I kind of cheated because I had to like pre-read it. And the thing that keeps coming into my head, the one thing I would like to achieve or obtain is every recipe as a chef or a cooking recipe in the game. I assume you would get some kind of cool achievement for that. I don't even know why that interests me right now, but I would like to be the world first in cooking every recipe. I'm sure there won't even be anything for that. Maybe like an achievement, and I can link it to people like, hey, now that kind of makes me wonder if there'll be achievements in Pantheon. You know? Because they'll be like, yo, link me this achievement before you can join my group. You know, that's one thing I really hate about achievements. And then like they put these arbitrary, whoa, getting sidetracked. Woo! So yeah, I would love to be a chef and make every single recipe in the game. So why is that? I don't even know. I just find that something really cool to me. I like being a chef in games. I like making my food and eating it. Dude, I can't even tell you why. It's just something that I dig it. I love cooking in games. It's silly, but I love cooking in games. So how long should this single one thing take you to do? I hope it would take me every single recipe. If crafting is super in depth and I want every recipe, there's guaranteed going to be raid recipes and really rare meats. Like we're talking rare meats here. I would go with a year and a half. Year and a half. Like the game launches, you know, January 1st. Wait, oh man, I can't even tell you what half the month is. Like next 2 Julys from then, you know, like really far away would get that achievement done and I'd be world first. It's gonna happen. That's my new goal. I don't think I'd play enough to really, I mean, I'll be playing a lot, but there's definitely people out there that are gonna be playing more than me, I can tell you that much. But yeah, that's it, man. Master Chef for Cleeze, here to make your spaghetti. I can't even say spaghetti right, but that's it. Alright guys, and with that, we're gonna call it there. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and consider liking and subscribing to get any notifications for future content that I release. If you have any questions for me, or in general about Pantheon, or about anything related to Green Chat, period, go ahead and leave them in the comments below, and I will address them in due time. I try to hit it up at least 3 times a week to get your guys' comments. Really appreciate it, and it encourages me, and you guys are really awesome. Bam. Slam dunk. You guys jam. Space jam. I'm not even going to keep going with that. And I'd like to thank you for watching again, guys, and I'll see you again really soon.